Hello and welcome back to Get Up and Game. My name is Josh, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing 5 tips and strategies to help reduce gameplay mistakes when you're playing Marvel Champions. Now, I already know what you're probably thinking. How am I, of all people, the one to be telling people how to make fewer mistakes in their games? Because if you've watched my playthroughs, you know I make a fair few mistakes myself. And that's actually what inspired this particular video. In my last playthrough, I made a lot more mistakes than I am normally comfortable with keeping in a video, but I decided to roll with it anyway. And it really got me thinking that I've got to find a way to do a better job of making fewer mistakes while I'm playing games. But I know from reading around and talking to others that everybody makes mistakes when playing these games. They are very complicated. There are a lot of triggers, there are a lot of effects and abilities in play to keep track of. And I highly doubt people play perfectly clean games all that often. So I know it's not just me. And I've been thinking a lot about various things I could be doing to try to improve my gameplay, just so I don't miss so many things, so I don't forget to do so many things. So this is going to be me preaching to myself, but if you find these tips and strategies helpful, then I am happy to share them with you. Now, this is one of my 100 subscriber specials. Every time Get Up and Game gets another 100 subscribers, I like to make a special video to say thank you. And since we just ticked over to 1,500 subscribers, I wanted to say a very, very big thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. Your kindness and support are always just so appreciated. And if you do enjoy this type of content and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then I invite you to subscribe and follow along. And it was in the 1,400 subscriber special that I made, like I said, a lot more mistakes than I would normally like. I've definitely scrapped videos with fewer mistakes than I did in that one, but I'm going to try to use it as an opportunity to improve. And so hopefully by implementing these 5 tips and strategies for playing cleaner games, I'll make a lot fewer mistakes in future videos, as well as just future gameplay on my own. I hope you'll find these useful as well, and I also invite you to leave in the comments things that you might do to try to avoid missing triggers or avoid forgetting to do things on your turn that would be beneficial. The more ways we have to make fewer mistakes, I think the happier we will all be. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one, and it actually takes place before the game even starts. And that's be aware of the things in the scenario you're playing that you are likely to miss. As you can see, I have a few cards here on the table. And one thing I want to start trying to do is, say I'm sitting down to play Gamora, for example, who is one of my least played heroes. I need to really fix in my mind her abilities, finesse and precision, because I know I am probably going to forget to activate those over the course of the game. You know, if I sit down to play a game with Drax, for example, well, when I used to sit down and play games with Drax, I've played him so many times, dozens and dozens of times most likely. I'm not going to forget to trigger his abilities. I'm going to remember to get my vengeance counters. I'm going to remember to draw cards with Dweeth Feet Mastery because I've done it so many times. These are not things I'm too concerned about. Same thing if I'm playing Wasp. When I go to Alter Ego, I'm not going to forget to shuffle in my cards with a GIRL ability because I've done it so many times. So these aren't things I'm concerned about. But if I'm sitting down to play Gamora, for example, I should be concerned that I'm going to forget her special ability because I don't play her very often and it's an easy trigger to forget. Similar to Mojo right now is a villain I've been playing a decent amount, and I still keep forgetting to trigger his forced response at the end of my hero turns, discarding cards to add threat to my hero. And another thing that's really been giving me trouble, it definitely happened in videos recently, is these environments with their constant effects that are providing various changes to the state of the game. It's just been really hard for me to continue to remember to keep an eye on those. So one thing I really want to start doing is before the game even starts, try to think about what things are going to cause me trouble and then just sort of prepare my mind and however that works to try to remember those things. So now that we've taken some time before the game to identify potential problem areas while we're playing, let's look at a few practical ways to avoid missing those things once we actually get going. So the second tip is really simple, is just to use tokens or some sort of visual reminders to help us to do the things we're supposed to do. Like Gamora, for example, gets a free threat removal and a free damage when she plays certain types of events. So what I'm going to start doing is putting a threat token and a damage token on her, and that will hopefully draw my eye. So when I play an attack event, and I'll see that she still has this threat token on her, I can simply take it off to remove a threat somewhere. And then if I play a thwart event at some point in the turn and I see that she still has this damage token on her, This hopefully will remind me that I get to deal a damage somewhere and take that off. And once those are off, I'll know that I've already used them. And then, at the end of the turn, I can put them back on and go from there. So it's an extra step. It's an extra thing I have to do. And this could go for a lot of different cards. Another one is assess the situation. If you play this early in the turn, it's really easy by the time you're drawing your hand to forget that you played it. So maybe putting one of these acceleration tokens on your deck or somewhere in your play area to remind you that you've increased your hand size will be a helpful way to do that. And these are just two examples, but I'm sure there's a lot of different things you could do with tokens or anything else you have handy just to help draw your eye. When you look down and see those things, you're going to think, why are those there? Oh yeah, I forgot to do something. So that's a pretty easy one. The next strategy I want to start implementing in my games might interfere with some of our organizational philosophies, because I've seen a lot of other people play this game online and I know how I play it. I like to have all of my upgrades and support sort of in a row all together. And then my allies are sort of out in play, and my heroes right here. One thing I want to start doing is to organize my play area in such a way that's going to help me remember to use my abilities. It's amazing how easily we can forget to trigger beneficial effects while we're playing just because we get in a hurry or we're so focused on other things, and then we realize later in the turn, I forgot to use Champion's Mobile Bunker, I forgot to trigger, this or that could have been very helpful. And it's because, all these cards end up in a row and we just kind of forget they're there. So the example I have here is if I'm planning on using Command Center whenever my allies thwart away side schemes to take advantage of its ability to deal damage, instead of just tucking it away in this little pile down here, I'm going to put it right up here with my allies where it's going to be used. So if I'm using Coulson and Blindfold to take out a side scheme, I'm going to have the Command Center right here with them. This is sort of the actual Command Center area of my board, and I'm going to have that right there to hopefully remember that this goes with these. I'm going to use these at the same time I use this, and I'm just less likely to forget. If it's tucked under here, I can barely even see it, and it seems like a no-brainer, but I know, at least for me, that's something I do a lot. I just forget I even have cards in play. So organizing your play area in a way that's going to help you remember, maybe put things in groups, the cards that work well together, instead of just putting all your upgrades and supports in a row because that's what they are. Put the things that trigger off allies with the allies. Put that Utopia right out there where your allies are, so when you play one near the Utopia, you're more likely to see it and remember to trigger it to ready your hero. Again, this seems like a basic thing, but it's definitely not something I've been doing. I put all my stuff in a way that I can't even see it and I forget it's there. And an even bigger one for this is with triggering villain effects. One thing I have been doing since pretty much the beginning is organizing these cards in a flow, so I remember that step 1 is to put threat on the main scheme, step 2 is the villain activates, and step 3 is dealing out encounter cards. That's pretty straightforward, and I think a lot of people do that. But where I can definitely get into trouble is with side schemes. We've got side schemes out. Again, I just tend to sort of stack them up or just put them wherever on the board. Why not put them near the thing that they're actually affecting? If there's a crisis in play, and I don't want to forget that there's a crisis in play, why not put it right in front of the main scheme? So I'm just more likely to see it when I'm reaching my hand to take the threat off the scheme as I'm playing a thwart event with a crisis in play, and I'll see that and be like, oh wait, no, I can't do that. And so hopefully I will catch that immediately instead of when I've taken 3 more actions in my turn and I have to back everything up and try to remember how I did everything. Accelerations, same thing, just put those right there near the main scheme, so I'm more likely to remember that the scheme is meant to be getting an extra threat. And again, tokens might be useful there. That symbol's kind of small. I put one of these on there to really catch your eye. I know sometimes people will put these tokens right on the main scheme when there is an acceleration in play. And even though that's not technically what you're supposed to do, if that works for you, if that's going to help, that's fine. Just remember that that's not a permanent one, which is why I recommend just putting it on the side scheme itself, just so it helps draw your eye to it. But, if you put it on the main scheme, there's a chance you'll forget why it's there. And then with Amplify, just put it right in front of the villain, reminding you that he is getting a boost. And with Hazards, just put it right in front of the encounter deck. Again, as you're reaching for your encounter cards, hopefully your eye will be drawn to that. You'll be more likely to notice those instead of just, I tend to stack them all off to the left, or again, just wherever I can find room on the board. And that's one thing that definitely needs to be said here. This might require a little bit more space And again, it's definitely going to mess with if we like to have everything in its own little area. For me, I am going to have to sort of break some habits. But if it helps me avoid making so many mistakes, if it's going to help my brain see the things that are in play in time to catch them before I'm on to the next turn, then I think it's going to be worth it to break up our little groups and to spread out our boards a little bit. Basically, whatever is going to help you remember, if putting cards in a different place, if positioning them near the thing that they're actually affecting is going to help you to remember, then I think that's really going to be worth it. All right, my fourth tip for playing cleaner games is kind of similar to the first one, but instead of preparing your mind at the beginning of the game, while you're playing, prepare for what's about to happen. Now, what I mean by that is there are certain points in the game where a lot of things might happen all at the same time, or you might be triggering a bunch of different effects, and it can be kind of easy to forget to do everything. And one of the main areas for that is when you flip into Alter Ego. I don't know how many times I've been playing Miles Morales, and I've played him a lot, and I'll flip to Alter Ego and I will forget to use his very helpful response to shuffle a Spider-Man card from my discard pile back into my deck. And sometimes I'll even forget to use my crew quarters that's sitting there. I'll just have it in my mind that's okay, my turn's over, I'm going to flip to Alter Ego, the villain's confused, and then I'll just immediately draw my hand. I think getting in the habit of recognizing, okay, I'm about to go to Alter Ego, what does that mean? What are my abilities? What should I be looking out for? What am I likely to forget? So trying to identify when something is about to happen that you could take advantage of before you just move past it is going to be really helpful. So like I said, if going to Alter Ego, just quickly remind yourself, I have an ability, I have some supports in play. You might be wanting to recover. And then again, if you just flip down and immediately draw your hand, it's like, it's kind of too late now. So that's a big one. Another one for me, apparently, is at least twice in videos that I have released, according to comments I've received, is I have forgotten to draw my cards from one way or another. I don't know how that's remotely possible that you could play one way or another and then forget to draw your 3 cards, but somehow I've done it, and I can understand why, because when you play a card like this that creates a lot of effects that take place by playing it, by the time I get back to the part where I would draw cards, I've just moved on. You play this, you've got to go into the encounter deck, find a side scheme, so you're making a choice, you're looking at a bunch of different ones, picking which one you want. You bring it into play, you have to reveal it, which might trigger any number of other things. And then once you're done with all of that, that's when you're supposed to draw your 3 cards. And, I could make the excuse for myself, at least, that I'm on camera, I'm narrating everything, I'm talking constantly, and that does help me to forget things, but I wouldn't be surprised a bit if I've done this off camera as well. So this is another thing where you sort of identify what's about to happen. I think in my mind, I'm playing one way or another, so what all needs to happen, and something you could even do is you could just sort of prepare for that. You can't actually draw the cards because who knows if the side scheme is going to affect your deck or something like that. It would be against the rules to actually draw the cards first, but maybe just, set them to the side or something. As soon as I play one way or another, I'm going to turn some cards on my deck sideways, maybe put a token on my deck, whatever I need to do, so that when I get done with everything up here with the encounter deck, I get back down here, I actually remember to draw my cards. So that's kind of a specific case, but if there's any kind of cards you play that are going to cause a bunch of triggers and then something happens after, it could be easy to forget to do the part after. So doing something at the beginning to help you remember to take full effect of your benefits is definitely, I think, going to be worth your time. I think another big moment in every round that would be a good time to just pause for just a second to prepare for what's about to happen is when you move into the villain phase. Again, similar to just flipping down to Alter Ego and immediately ending your turn, drawing your hand without really thinking about all the other things you could be doing, I completely forget that I might have some defensive options or special abilities that I could be taking advantage of because I'm just moving too fast. For example, if you're playing Spider-Man, you're going into the villain phase, remind yourself, okay, I'm going into the villain phase. What does that mean? Well, it means I'm going to get to draw a card when the villain attacks me, and be sure to check your hand because there's a lot of heroes that have cards like Enhanced Spider Sense, or like Doctor Strange has cancels, Scarlet Witch, things like that. I don't know how many times I've gotten back past the villain phase, back to my hand, I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could have canceled that treachery. But by then it's kind of too late because you've already seen the effects and you might have seen other cards, stuff like that. So instead of trying to decide if you want to rewind or not, when you draw your hand and you're preparing for the villain phase, just be sure to quickly look, do I have any defensive options? And just sort of keep those handy, put it face up on top of your hand or whatever you need to do to just sort of remind yourself that I can actually do things during the villain phase and I don't want to forget. So just taking a beat to prepare for what's about to happen and just reminding yourself of all the things in play. You know, you might have defense abilities. Who has retaliate? Who has some sort of special effect? You know, for some reason, when I'm playing Green Goblin, I often forget his ability to put a threat on the main scheme if he damages me. You know, just taking a second before every villain phase, quickly reminding yourself, these are the things that are going to happen. These are the things I want to be aware of. Do I have an energy barrier in play? I kept forgetting to use my energy barriers in my last play. Like, how do you forget to do those things? But we're just moving too quickly. We feel like we already know it all because we've played the game 1,000 times. But just preparing for what's about to happen, reminding yourself of all the effects that are likely to trigger, I think could go a long way towards helping us avoid missing all those things. Another example, actually, along those lines, similar to the one way or another example, is things like many of the encounter cards have a lot of different effects that happen, and especially the ones that have surge. It's really easy to forget by the time you're done doing everything else, like Total Annihilation here, for example, from Standard 2. When you reveal this card, the villain's going to attack you, so you have to go through a whole activation, boost card, decide whether or not you're defending, all that stuff. And then once that's resolved, then this card surges, and that is incredibly easy to forget because you've done so much other stuff since you revealed this card. I think you could easily be forgiven for forgetting to surge it, but that is how it works. So this is another situation where you might consider putting a token on it. You know, when you bring it out, don't just like, okay, I'm getting attacked, chuck it into the discard pile and move on. Technically, this stays in play until it's completely resolved anyway. So we just put this on the table and leave it on the table, go through the whole process. The villain attacks you, the attack gains overkill, do all that stuff. And then, oh, this is still on the table. Why? Oh, because it surges. And then put in the discard pile, do your surge, all that stuff. You know, we get in such a big hurry and we just kind of blow through things, and then it's so easy to forget. So that's another one. When you're revealing encounter cards, and I'm just going to roll right from that into the fifth point, is just, I've said it a bunch of times, but it's just slow down. Like, I know that seems very obvious and maybe not helpful, but it's so true. We just keep going and going. One mistake I made in the recent play is with this card, Stage Fright. When it's revealed, you are confused. My camera keeps jumping around. And then it says place 2 threat in the main scheme. And then there's all this other stuff. Like, there's so much text. And I just blew right through the whole you are confused part. I just completely ignore that. I need to slow down. You know, I put the card on the table and I read it. You are confused. Stop. Stop right there. Go get your confused status, put it on your hero, and then keep reading. I think, you know, we read through a whole treachery. We might have some choices to make, things like that. And it's just so easy to forget these little mistakes. So just slowing down in general, which could probably be the one tip for the whole video, is just taking our time. But, you know, we're all busy. We're all in a hurry. We're all trying to get, you know, our games done as quickly as we can. And it might take a little bit longer. You know, if you go through these steps, you actually take a few, maybe not minutes, but maybe a whole minute before the game to sit and think, okay, what's going to cause me problems? Have I played this hero recently? What are the abilities that I'm likely to forget? Same with the villain. Are there any cards in their set that are complicated that I want to make sure I understand correctly? And then when you're actually playing the game, taking the time to maybe put tokens on certain cards or some sort of visual reminders to help you identify those problem areas, actually reorganizing the way you actually build your board while you're playing to make sure that cards that work together are actually grouped together so you won't forget to trigger your abilities. Same with the villain. You know, you can put side schemes near the things that affect, and there's other things too. I just had a few examples. And then remembering when you go into alter ego, what are all my abilities? When I'm going into the villain phase, do I have any cards in my hand? Do I have anything in play that's going to affect what's happening? Just slowing down, taking a beat at each moment in the game, maybe even completely reading the villain card every single time they attack. You know, like something like with Drang, for example, is text that after he schemes, resolve the Badoon ship charge ability. That's easy to forget because even though it has the little star reminder there, you know, we're just going so fast, we're just blowing through, you know, trying to get in the habit of actually reading the card every single time. Again, it's going to take a little bit longer, but if you're anything like me, you notice after a couple turns, or if you watch a video back and you see it while you're editing, and it just drives you crazy because you forgot to do these things. Because now you sort of feel like if you won the game, you sort of feel like you cheated. And if you lost, you think, oh, maybe I would have won if I'd remember to draw those cards, if I remember to do those things. So these are the things I'm going to start implementing in my games. Hopefully you'll see them in the videos. I'm going to try to really make this a thing. Maybe this will be my gaming New Year's resolution. I didn't really think to make any of those, but maybe that'll be it. Just trying to make fewer mistakes. You know, and in conclusion, I want to say, obviously, it's not that big of a deal, right? We're playing a game for fun. It's not meant to be stressful. It's not meant to cause us trouble, and we shouldn't worry too much if we make mistakes. And same, hopefully, when you're watching videos of your favorite content creators, you know, they're going to make mistakes. These things happen. There's a lot going on. It's easy to miss. But maybe by implementing just a few simple tips and strategies, we can at least minimize those so we can feel a little bit better about playing cleaner games. We can feel good about those wins. And we don't have to gnash our teeth about those losses, that we can at least be reasonably sure that we did everything in the game the way we were supposed to. So that's my take on trying to play cleaner games. I want to thank you so much for joining me. And again, I want to thank my 1,500 subscribers. It's just unbelievable to me. The channel continues to grow, and I'm having such a blast seeing it happen. This is a very exciting time for the channel. I've got a lot of fun things coming up that I'm really looking forward to, and I hope you'll be excited as well. So if you want to see what I've got coming up, a bunch more plays, a bunch more of these talky videos, I've still got so much to say about this game and so much to show you. So I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll join along. And I just really look forward to seeing you next time we get up in game. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.